Let's give all praises to the Most High, whose true name in ancient Hebrew is Yahweh, in the name of his only begotten Son, whose true name in the ancient Hebrew is Yahweh Shai. You know, our Lord and Savior, and the Holy Spirit, which in the ancient Hebrew is the Rakakwadash. Double honors to the elders of GMS, who taught us the truth by the Holy Spirit. Honors to the brothers, risking their life and freedom to push the gospel. Peace and blessings to the elect, who consist the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, who make up the lost 12 tribes of Israel, according to scripture and prophecy. The elect will be 1/3 of the Israelites, who in these last days are returning back to Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shah, while the 2/3 of Israel who don't seek the Lord in time be destroyed with America. And that's according to prophecy. We back with another lesson through the mercy and spirit of Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shah. And this lesson is going to be titled, Esau Will Crash the Global Economy to Force the Cashless Digital System on the World. And we know America is rapidly accumulating debt. They starting wars with all these countries. That's what World War III about. Giving Israel all these military packages, giving Ukraine all these military packages, military budgets, in the hundreds of billions of dollars at a time. America is increasing its own military budget, approaching $1 trillion per year, but they $39 trillion in debt. They building all these data centers, AI, automation, infrastructure. They about to transition into the 6G internet, brain chip research centers. With Taiwan, they got to buy all these microchips, to microchip the people for this cashless digital society, the new world order. So America ain't gonna do nothing but increase in spending. And when Trump, brother, and Elon Musk talking about they gonna cut useless government spending to reduce America's debt, they raised the debt. So it was never about cutting useless government spending. They're just firing people because automation and AI about to take over the job market. So the point is, America will continue to increase its debt, but they about to pull a scam on the whole world. And I believe that scam, that's what's going to lead these nations, these different countries, to sending them nukes over here to America. Because, see, everybody looking at America for them to go down. That's why when we get this in Habakkuk 2:6, shall now all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe, meaning destruction, to him that increaseth that which is not his. So what? He came into power and got riches and wealth through robbery, through deception, by blood. So woe to him that increaseth that which is not his, how long? So everybody is waiting on the great horde to fall. Just how reckless they are. Anybody that's reckless, you would pretty much expect them to fall. And that's what the world is waiting on. It says, and to him that latheth himself with thick clay. Now let's look in the Hebrew to see what that means. Latheth himself with thick clay. Thick clay, H5671. Look at this, heavy debts. And who got the most debt in the world? America. So woe to him that increaseth that which is not his, and to him that latheth himself with thick clay. Him who has heavy debts. So everybody's anticipating the fall of America at any moment. Then which when you get this in the NLT, it say, what sorrow awaits you thieves? Now you will get what you deserve. You will become rich by extortion. But how much longer can this go on? And again, him that latheth himself with thick clay or heavy debts. So America about to pull the ultimate scam. They're gonna reset. They're gonna crash the global economy to erase their debt. They're gonna erase their debt, but it's gonna bring down the global economy. So everybody who has interests and investments in anything tied to America, America gonna crash all their economies. Now I gotta send something to the computer real quick because there's more U.S. dollars and investments and stocks and bonds and treasuries outside of America than inside of America. Now, when we read this in the AI overview, which I'm not the expert on it, but I understand just enough, it says foreign entities own over 9 trillion in U.S. Treasury debt. You know, as of last year, representing 25 to 30% of total federal debt held by the public. So other countries, they own $9 trillion in U.S. debt. And that's a scam right there. Like America, so much of a crook and the scam artists, they sell their debt. Imagine telling somebody, I'm going to sell you my car note. I'm going to sell you my house payment. I'm going to sell you my phone bill. America is in debt, and it sells its debt to these other countries. Total foreign holdings of U.S. securities, including stocks and corporate bonds, total over 31 trillion. Major foreign holders of debt include Japan, China, and the UK. Foreign countries own approximately $9 trillion of U.S. government debt. So America is in debt to all these countries. And these countries, when they calculate their wealth or their GDP, in that calculation, U.S. debt and stocks and bonds and treasuries is included in that. Like when a country calculates how much money the country is bringing in, how it's going to tax the people, how much money the government is going to spend, how much wealth they sitting on, they include U.S. debt in them calculations. The saying in the world, if somebody owe you money, you know you got money coming. So you might include that in your balance. You don't physically have the money, but you know it's owed to you. So the countries, they hold on to that American debt and treasuries and bonds and stocks and all that stuff. And it says top foreign holders of U.S. debt. Japan at 1 trillion, China 749 billion, the UK 690 billion. But all these countries, they own U.S. debt. But again, America is going to crash the global economy. To erase this debt, and in doing that, it's going to bring down the economy of all these countries because so much is tied to the U.S. dollar. So when the U.S. dollar is devalued or crashes, everything is going to crash with it. Not only inside of America, but it's going to have bigger effects outside of America. So we're going to start with this first video. And the title is Russia Exposes U.S. Plot to Dump $37 trillion debt with Crypto Reset.
Russia has blown the whistle on a U.S. devaluation scheme.
America is trying to change the rules in the gold and cryptocurrency markets. Remember how much debt they have, $35 trillion.
Dropping a global bombshell this week, accusing the U.S. of plotting to erase its $37 trillion debt burden.
And again, the U.S. debt A lot of it is owned by these other countries. So if they can erase their debt, essentially, America is erasing the wealth of all these other countries who own U.S. debt. And you see how much debt, U.S. debt, these countries own, are how much U.S. debt these countries own. So this ain't $50 we talking about, $20 we talking about. 9 figures, 10, 12 figures, 11 figures. I think a trillion is 12 zeros. That's 13 figures that technically America owe these other countries. And America gonna crash the system to erase all of this debt. So again, the global economy, the global markets is gonna crash when America erases its debt.
Taking said debt, shoving it into crypto, devaluing to erase its $37 trillion debt burden. By taking said debt, shoving it into crypto, devaluing it, and then resetting the system with a gold revaluation.
So this is speculation how they can do it, which cryptocurrency is going to be part of that scam on how America erases its debt and crash the economies of all these other countries. Cryptocurrency going to be part of that, and she going to explain it.
Series of moves that wouldn't just impact those using cryptocurrency, but would impact the entire dollar system, meaning your...
So yeah, it won't just impact these other countries or people who use America's cryptocurrency. It's going to impact everything that's tied to the dollar. Your 401k, how much your house is worth, how much money you make, your savings, everything's going to be affected.
$7 trillion debt burden. By taking said debt, shoving it into crypto, devaluing it, and then resetting the system with a gold revaluation. A series of moves that wouldn't just impact those using cryptocurrency, but would impact the entire dollar system, meaning your savings, your retirement, your paycheck. But the scariest part is that the plan is already in motion. In case you missed it, Anton Kobiakov, a senior advisor to Russian President Vladimir Putin, made a bold claim this week at the Eastern Economic Forum, stating that the United States is preparing to reset the system, using crypto and gold to erase its massive debt burden.
Driving everyone where? Into the cryptocurrency cloud. Right now they have a $35 trillion currency debt. They move it into crypto, into the cloud, devalue it, and start from scratch.
But here's where it gets interesting. Just a few months ago, President Trump signed into law the Genius Act, legislation that creates regulatory framework for stablecoins. Stablecoins being a type of cryptocurrency that maintain a stable value by being pegged to a real-world asset, such as the dollar. But not all is as it appears. On the surface, it was hailed as innovative and the U.S. adopting a new digital world that will keep us competitive. But if you look a little bit closer, there are many who say this is the foundation and legal framework for the United States to use these stablecoins as a lifeline for our debt. None of this even takes into consideration the fact that these stablecoins could also be a Trojan horse for financial control over the American people, taking away our freedom and privacy. But that is a separate video that I've already covered if you want to watch that.
And that's a cashless digital society with New World Order. It's not going to just be forced on Americans, but the whole world.
Link it below. But back to the government scheme. It's no secret that as U.S. debt soars past $37 trillion, the U.S. is facing a buyer's crisis. Foreign central banks are dumping treasuries and moving into gold, a clear sign of declining trust in the dollar. In fact, as Kobiakov himself said, the U.S. is very eager to solve the problem of declining trust in the dollar. This is a massive problem for America because the fewer the buyers there are, the higher the yields, meaning higher interest rates that the US then has to pay just to keep the system afloat, making it harder for us to roll over our debt or inflate away our debt, essentially compounding the debt crisis we already have. Enter stablecoins. These digital tokens that are backed one-to-one by US treasuries essentially create an artificial demand for our debt, propping up the entire system and giving us the lifeline we need. But before I explain how the pump and dump would work and how gold plays a role, I want to hear from you. What do you think? Do you think that Russia is exposing the US's plans, or do you think that they're just throwing shade at a declining dollar? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Now imagine if the US pushes adoption of these stablecoins, either by policy, regulation, or promoting them as the new safe digital dollar, all of which, by the way, is already starting to happen. Foreign investors, institutions, even retail would hold these stablecoins in mass, which again are backed one-to-one by US treasuries.
So yeah, the world would deal with America's digital currency because, like she say, one stable coin equals one US dollar. So essentially, when you get these stable coins or whatever cryptocurrency America chooses to use, it's the same value as the dollar.
It would be like a cloud-based treasury market that would be disguised as a payment system. That solves problem one, the demand for our debt. But Kobiakov takes it a step further, claiming that the United States is plotting to weaponize stablecoins. Essentially, once enough U.S. debt is tokenized into these stablecoins, that's when they will turn around and depeg or devalue them. So instead of being one-to-one, one stablecoin to one USD equivalent, maybe it's one stablecoin to 50 cents US.
So you heard that. Once enough U.S. debt is in the form of these stable coins or cryptocurrency, America would then devalue the dollar. So instead of one stable coin being one US dollar, she gave the example one stable coin now equals 50 cents. So everybody who has US debt in the form of a stable coin, well, America can erase and wipe out half of its debt by devaluing the dollar, which determines the worth of that stable coin. And if America devalues it by 50%, wiping out half of its debt, that would erase half of the wealth of these countries who own US debt. Now somebody broke, let's say they got $50 to their name, and they devalue the dollar, by 50%. Now $1 only has the buying power of 50 cents. Well, if you got $50 to your name, you only losing $25. But people who got businesses, investments, they would lose half of their wealth. So if your house worth $250,000, America devalued the dollar, well, now your house is only worth $125,000. You make $25 per hour. Well, America devalued that dollar. Now you're only making really $12.50 per hour. But that's small money compared to the wealth that these countries would lose. So if they devalue the dollar, once enough of the world start dealing with the cryptocurrency, and they devalue it by 50%, Japan would lose $500 billion. China would lose like $425 billion. But you see, this ain't just $25, $50, $100, that's being wiped away from these countries. The U.S. would be erasing, trillions and billions of dollars of their debt, but trillions and billions of dollars being erased from these other countries. So it'll prop up America erasing their debt, but wipe out the wealth of these other countries. That's a scam they about to try to pull off. Why you think this nigga just spending up all this damn money with no intentions of really trying to lower the debt? America ain't got no intentions of paying off this debt. That's why he sold it. The ultimate scammer, somebody who can sell you their debt, they can sell you their bills. And that's why the book of Psalms 37-21, the wicked, who we know is Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, but especially the white man in the West, here in America, the wicked borroweth and payeth not again. So yeah, that's why he sold you the debt, because he ain't got no intentions of paying it off. That's why he gonna try to erase his debt, switching to some form of a cryptocurrency. The wicked borroweth and payeth not again. That's him selling his debt, and that's him about to erase it. But the righteous showeth mercy and giveth. But yeah, the wicked borroweth and payeth not again. And that's really why they running it up. They running up their debt because they about to erase it. Now, I gave the example that the lady used. What if they devalue it, by 50%? Now one stable coin equals 50 cents. It could be a lot worse than that. They could make one stable coin equals 10 cents. That means America will wipe out 90% of its debt. Wiping out 90% of the wealth that these countries got that's tied to the American dollar. Now these countries, they got other forms of wealth too. They got their own currency, natural resources, land, and other things that tie into their wealth. But the portion of their wealth that's tied to the US dollar in the form of US debt, stocks and bonds and treasuries, that will be wiped out, depending on how much America devalues the dollar. Or let's say the dollar is erased altogether. Japan would lose 1.1 trillion. China would lose 750 billion, which I think that's what America gonna do. America about to go all the way. I don't think they gonna partially wipe up their debt. I think they gonna fully wipe it out in this scheme, fully erasing the wealth that these other countries have in the form of American debt. But remember, the wicked borroweth and payeth not again. And let's go back to the video real quick.
Turn around and depeg or devalue to weaponize stablecoins. Essentially, once enough US debt is tokenized into these stablecoins, that's when they will turn around and depeg or devalue them. So instead of being 1-to-1, one stablecoin to one USD equivalent, maybe it's one stablecoin to 50 cents USD equivalent.
But again, what if it's one stablecoin to 10 cents US equivalent? Or one stablecoin to a nickel? Or one stablecoin to 1 cent? Or what if they just crash the dollar altogether? The wicked borroweth and payeth not again. Let's read that in the NLT. The wicked borrow and never repay.
Holders would eat the loss, effectively reducing their wealth by 50%, while America would be able to reduce the debt burden significantly without ever having to call it a default. But here's the kicker. Even if you don't have any cryptocurrency, even if you never touch a stable coin, this devalue to call it a default. But here's the kicker. Even if all holders would eat the loss, effectively reducing their wealth by 50%, while America...
See, all holders, anybody who has anything tied to the US dollar, from a homeless person with $20 to their name, to somebody that work a 9 to 5, the CEO of a corporation, to these other countries who own billions to trillions of dollars of US debt. Everybody would eat that loss. But America will wipe out all of his debt. That's the system that we deal with. That's the system that we work for. It's all a scam.
Would be able to reduce the debt burden significantly without ever having to call it a default. But here's the kicker. Even if you don't have any cryptocurrency, even if you never touch a stablecoin, this devaluation won't just hit foreign nations and financial institutions. It will hit all dollar-denominated assets, everything within the dollar system.
And we know the dollar is the reserve currency of the world. It's still got that status. You know, a lot of countries, when they deal with the oil markets, it's dealt with in US dollars. So the world is still very dependent on the dollar. Now, even though these countries are trying to get away from the dollar, you know, when it comes to purchasing oil or just trade in general, they still got all this US debt that's valued in US dollars. So even if China, Japan, and everybody on the other side of the world start trading in the Chinese yuan or another currency, they still got all this US debt. And America plans to wipe it out.
Your retirement, your paycheck, all of it would lose value overnight. Won't just hit foreign nations and financial institutions. It will hit all dollar-denominated assets, everything within the dollar system, your savings, your retirement, your paycheck, all of.
See that? Everybody would be affected. But that's why the lesson is titled, Esau will crash the global economy, to force the cashless digital system on the world.
Would lose value overnight. And if you still don't believe me or you think that this will never happen, it already has.
So that's the point. And now a cashless digital society on its own is not a bad thing. But it's how Esau gonna force it on the world. And then you only have access to it by being microchipped. A cashless digital society ain't bad. Digital currency ain't bad. But it's the way America is gonna use it. Because right now you got BRICS. You know, the main players, China, Russia, Brazil, India, South Africa. You got a lot of other countries that's been joining. They working on their BRICS token, a digital currency. And what they want to do is pretty much stop dealing in US dollars. But see what America gonna do, they want to force this cashless digital system on the whole world. Russia and them and BRICS, they're not trying to force it on the whole world. They just trying to do their own thing. So a cashless digital system ain't bad. But what America's gonna try to do, pretty much force everybody into a digital slavery, that's what's wicked. But I'm going to get this in the book of Zephaniah 1:10. It shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, there should be a noise of a cry from the fish gate, and the howling from the second, and the great crashing from the hills. This is a market crash. So a great cry from the fish gate. Let's look up this phrase fish gate in Hebrew. Gonna look up this word gate, H8179. You go to this word gate, it says gate, it says marketplace. See that? So there shall be the noise of a great cry from the fish gate, a great cry from the marketplace. And you got what? The stock market, all these different markets, global markets, the oil market, all these different markets, there's going to be a great cry. Why? It says, and the great crashing from the hills. So a market crash. And what's the hills? We know we deal with the other nations and countries because we know mountains and hills represents kingdoms and governments, other countries. So it's gonna be the noise of a cry from the fish gate, you know, from the marketplace, the global markets, all of them, anything that's tied to the U.S. dollar, and the howling from the second, and the great crashing. That's a market crash from the hills. And that's what America gonna do. It's gonna crash the global economy. Wiping out its debt. Okay, so, and I believe that's gonna be the event that causes all these countries to shoot their nukes at America. Because when we get this in the book of Job 20 and 22, it says, in the fullness of his sufficiency, he shall be in straits, and every hand of the wicked shall come upon him. What's the fullness of his sufficiency? When he's about to roll out his new world order on the world. It say what? He shall be in straits. And let's look up this word straits. H3334. Straits. It says to be distressed, to be cramped, be narrow, be in straits. Narrow to cause distress. To be vexed. So pretty much to be in a difficult place. And we know what? That he's on the verge of rolling out his new world order. This cashless digital system, microchipping everybody. And what? He in straits. And heard a brother say this, the Straits of Hormuz. So he was just about to roll out his new world order, but now he in straits. He in the Straits of Hormuz, cause he need that oil market. So he in a difficult place in rolling out his new world order. He thought he was just gonna go over there and get all the oil, set up a central bank, but it ain't working out for him. He losing the war, and then he in straits, the Straits of Hormuz. He's trapped there. What he needs for this new world order is really dependent on the Straits of Hormuz being open. So right now, Esau at a standstill. He don't know what to do. But he's finally going to realize that he can take advantage of this moment of the Straits of Hormuz being closed by pretty much crashing a dollar. And then everybody loses. So yeah, in the fullness of his sufficiency, about to roll out this new world order, he shall be in straits, figuratively, in a difficult place, and then literally, he in the Straits of Hormuz over there having trouble. He don't know what to do. And it says, every hand of the wicked shall come upon him. Let's look up that word, wicked. H6001. Look at this. For wicked, it says sufferer, a laborer, a workman. So everybody is a worker, a laborer, a slave to the US dollar. Everybody's suffering under the dollar. So when it says every hand of the wicked shall come upon him, pretty much everybody that's a slave to the dollar. That's not just talking about outside of, inside of America. There's more so talking about outside of America. Because everybody, the hand of the wicked, all these other countries, who's going to lose when Esau crashes the dollar, they all going to put hands on America. By what? Sending them nuclear missiles over here. And that's in the next verse. When he's about to fill his belly, that's the mind. not fill your belly, but fulfill his desires. God shall cast the fury of his wrath upon him. So when he's about to roll out and finalize his new world order after he crashed the global economy, crashing all these markets, wiping out their debt, erasing the wealth of all these different countries. God shall cast the fury of his wrath upon him and shall rain it upon him while he is eating, while he's finishing up, when he's microchipping the people. He shall flee from the iron weapon, that's the nuclear missile, and the bow of steel shall strike him through. So we see the order of events. He in the fullness of his sufficiency now. He's ready to roll these things out. He shall be in straits. He in the straits of Hormuz over there confused, don't know what to do. Nobody want to help. Everybody turning against him. He losing the war. Iran is letting other people through the Straits of Hormuz. But yeah, he in straits, literally and figuratively. Every hand of the wicked gonna come upon him. Why? Because Esau gonna wipe out his debt and erase the wealth of all these other countries. When he's about to fill his belly, God shall cast the fury of his wrath upon him and shall rain it upon him while he is eating. So that's how it's going to play out. Every hand of the wicked, everybody who's a slave to the dollar, everybody, who has wealth, U.S. debt, valued in U.S. dollar, everybody going to send their missiles over here. That's how they going to lay hands on America. It's going to come as a form of rain. So everybody go lay hands on America. Everybody going to send missiles over here. And that's the next verse. He shall flee from the iron weapon, the bow of steel shall strike him through. It is drawn and cometh out of the body. The missile silos, underground, Iran got missiles that come out of mountains. The glittering sword cometh out of his gall, terrors upon him. So yeah. And this Revelation 13 and 16, after he's wiped out his debt and crashed the dollar, crashing the global economy, erasing the wealth of all these different countries. It says, he caused of all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. So again, Esau gonna force his version, America gonna force their version of the cashless digital system on the world. And you get access to that by being marked in the right hand, the RFID microchip, and in the forehead, the Neuralink brain chip. That's why Elon said he's going to mass produce these brain chips. It's for this new world order. And that no man might buy or sell, say if he that had the mark. So America going to wipe out its debt, erase the wealth of these other countries, and try to put that microchip on them. And that's why Job 20 and 22 said, every hand of the wicked shall come upon him. That's going to be the last straw. In all these other countries, they're going to send them nukes or whatever kind of missile they got over here to America. And that's that iron weapon, that bow of steel. So yeah, Esau don't know what to do now, but pretty soon it's gonna come to mind. Okay, they can take advantage of this situation, them losing the war, and all that by crashing the dollar. So, Lord, what does informative till next time, Shalom.